Good morning, grade 2. How are you today? Today we start with a new lesson in term 4 that's called A New Country. As we have covered before the vacation, what happened in the colonies in Jamestown and Plymouth, and we said that we had colonists who lived in the colony and they were ruled by another country, which was England, because the kings and queens of Europe, they wanted North America to be part of Europe. Here in this lesson is telling you that more people from England came to settle in North America. A lot of families were coming from England to stay in North America. What did they do? They built homes, churches, farms, and they had their own business in North America. All people in North America, the American Indians and the English people who were coming from England, they had to follow rules from the King of England or ruler of Great Britain. Okay, so all the people in North America, they had to follow rules from the King of England. But do you think that the colonists would agree to these rules? Well, did they agree to follow the rules of the King of England? Will they keep quiet? We don't know. Here is telling you that more and more colonists wanted independence from Great Britain, or they wanted independence from England. They wanted freedom. They want to be free from the English laws or rules, okay, that were sent to them from Great Britain or from the King of England himself. So more and more colonists, more and more people who were living in North America, they wanted independence from Great Britain. What is the meaning of independence? Independence means being free from rule by another nation or by another country. We don't want to be ruled by English people. We don't want to follow the rules from the King of England. We want freedom. We want to live freely. So more and more colonists, they wanted freedom or they wanted independence from England. So what did they do? They start, or the colonists start to act against British rules and taxes. They said no for everything. No Sugar Act, no Tea Act, no Stamp Act. They went down in the street. They were asking for independence. They were asking for freedom. They said that we will not pay more money. We want to be free. We don't want to follow the rules of the King of England. We will not pay more money. This is our land. We want it. We will free it. So this is what the colonists did, or how did they ask for their independence. But do you think that King George, the King of England during that time, agreed to their request? Did he agree to give them their independence or their freedom? Of course not. So what did King George do during that time, the King of England or the ruler of Great Britain during that time? What did he do with the colonists? He started to send armies, more soldiers from England, from Europe, to control the colonists in North America. Okay, so what did King George do during that time? He started to send armies to control the colonists or to put them under control. He didn't want noise. He didn't want anyone to take from him North America, because North America was full of gold and other riches, and that's why they wanted to be part of Europe. So King George started to send armies to control the colonists in North America. But the colonists didn't stop. They chose a person who was a very brave one, and his name was Thomas Jefferson. Why did they choose Thomas Jefferson? They chose Thomas Jefferson to write the Declaration of Independence. They wrote like a list of their requests or what they wanted from the King of England. So that's why they chose him to inform England or to inform King George about what the colonists wanted from him or wanted from his country. So the colonists or the people in North America chose Thomas Jefferson to write the Declaration of Independence, to tell King George and the kings and queens of Europe what did the colonists want from them. But did you think, or do you think that the King of England and the queens and kings of Europe would agree to this Declaration of Independence? Of course not. Great Britain didn't want independence. They didn't want the colonists to gain their freedom or their independence. So King George, the King of England during that time, he started to send soldiers, this time to fight a war against the colonists. But at the beginning, he sent armies to control the colonists. It was not a war at the beginning. But after this, when he found that they insisted on their independence or their freedom, he started to send more armies and more soldiers, but this time to fight, to kill the ones who were asking for independence. So the English or the European soldiers during that time were sent, or they had a war or a fight with the colonists. Okay, how long did this war last? It lasted for 8 years. Of course, it was a long time. For 8 years, they were asking for independence, and there was a war or a fight between the English soldiers or the soldiers that were sent from King George's side and the colonists. Of course, it was a big war, and that's why they call it the American Revolution. Why did they call it the American Revolution? Because the Americans won this war by the end, and they won their independence after 8 years of fight between them and the English or the European soldiers. So by the end, the American people won their independence. And I want you to know that this war or this fight lasted for 8 years. Can you imagine how many families died during that time? How many soldiers were killed during that time? But the American people didn't stop, and that's why they asked for their independence. We will not keep quiet. We will gain, or our land will be back again to us from the ones who wanted to take everything for them. So this war was called the American Revolution, and it lasted for 8 years. Of course, Thomas Jefferson was not the only leader of independence, because he wrote the Declaration of Independence. And I don't want you to forget who sent armies to control the colonists? King George. Who sent armies to fight a war against the colonists? King George. Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? Thomas Jefferson. How many years did this war last? It lasted for 8 years. What I want to know, that there were also another leaders who helped Thomas Jefferson, and they had a good role for the American independence. We will read these names of the leaders of independence together. Another leader, of course, one of the leaders of independence that I informed you about, he was Thomas Jefferson, because Thomas Jefferson, he wrote the Declaration of Independence. And here I want you to memorize the names of these leaders of independence. We had Benjamin Franklin. Okay, he was one of the leaders of independence who asked for independence. We had Abigail Adams. She was another leader of independence. We had Samuel Adams. He was asking for the American independence, and also he was a great leader. And we had Paul Revere. We had Paul, and we had the last one who was the leader of independence. His name was Paul Revere. So let's read again the names of the leaders of independence: Benjamin Franklin, Abigail Adams, Samuel Adams, Paul Revere. These were the leaders of independence, plus Thomas Jefferson and all the colonists and the American people who helped them to gain their independence. Okay, I wish that you understood our lesson for this week. Study hard and get ready for your quiz next week, inshallah. Thank you so much. Bye bye.